Chapter-1 Divine Vision and the Devotee. In the word divine vision, vision means acquaintance or familiar, and divine means crystalline understanding of the universal energy. God and the devotee, though two in name, are one in spirit. In his very nature, the devotee is identical with God. Both are absolute pure consciousness, or Brahman. So long as one has not realized God, one does not know what is justice or the essence, and injustice, or the transitory. But realization of the self is true justice done to the devotee. The devotee then comes to know the distinction between the essential, which is true justice, and the inessential or fleeting appearances, the right and wrong, the eternal and the evanescent. And this leads to his emancipation and true freedom. The divine vision eliminates individuality. The manifest is then only felt and is clearly distinguished from the unmanifest. With the loss of individuality, the selfish, egoistic interests also disappear. For one cannot be discriminating so long as one is selfish, and cannot even know the significance of the eternal. But when the sense of individuality is replaced by that of manifestation, the devotee knows that he is pure consciousness through and through. The sense of manifestation is the awareness of oneself as only an expression of the Supreme Being. Yet the temporal life must continue with all its complex interactions. The spiritually enlightened saints do take part in the divine play of life as a kind of sportive endeavor or lila, knowing that it is only a play of the universal consciousness. The fact that the saints in their interactions with the rest of the world sometimes refer to themselves as individuals gives rise to the misunderstanding that the saint too is much involved in worldly life, just as the common man is. But true saints are ever aware that it is only the pure consciousness that is expressing itself in different names and forms, and continues to do so in ever new forms. It is true the saint does experience the pains and sorrows of the life, but surely not their sting. The saints do not hold on to the pains and sorrows and do not create a story. The saint is neither moved nor disturbed by the pleasures and pains and profits and losses of the world. To the saint, the so-called unbearable events of the world are just a tame and harmless affair. Even petty things are at times unbearable to the common man. But for the saint or true devotee, they remain unmoved even in the world-rocking events. Hence, they are in a position to direct others to a safe position. But at first, people in the fit of their petty pride and egoism simply ignore the saint. But egoistic individuality, subsequent experience, drags them towards the saints. For the saint's behavior is guided exclusively by the sense of justice and the essential. God, as justice incarnate, has neither any relations nor belongings. Peace and happiness of the world are the Lord's only treasure. The Lord, as formless divine consciousness, cannot have anything as its own interest. The soul, the world, Brahman, and self-realization. The consciousness of one's own being, of the world of things and its supporting primal force, are experienced all at once. Awareness of one's own being does not mean psychical or mental consciousness of oneself as an individual, but implies the revelation of the mystery of existence. Prior to this, there is no experience of absolute pure consciousness in the utter ignorance of one's own true being. But the moment one is aware of their true being, he is directly aware of the world, which is one with Brahman. In the stage prior to cosmic awareness, one's sense of self and its experiences are limited only to the worldly life. This limited idea of life starts with the birth and ends in death. It is obvious that after-death experiences are not a thing to be had in this life. To be aware of ourself and of the world and God, all of a sudden, is a great mystery indeed. It is an unexpected gain. It is an absorbing and mysterious event, extremely significant and great. But it brings with it the heavy responsibility of self-preservation, sustenance, and self-development as well. And nobody can avoid it. But for life before this experience, nourishment is absolutely essential. One feels that all experience is engendered in feeding. One is not sure whether it would be death or disappearance of experience that ensues in the absence of nourishment. As experience is inextricably bound up with nourishment, the desire to probe into the mystery of life is interrupted at every stage. One would surely die if one were not to eat. But till the moment of the present experience, there was no experience of I was eating, or I have eaten, or that I am going to eat. What we have is only a memory of these activities, and not the experience as such. Yet what is this mystery that I was alive and I am alive? These two phases of our being are certainly not a matter of memory, nor of inference, but of direct experience. It is certainly here that the mystery lies. When we begin to think of this, all our thoughts are transmuted beyond recognition, beyond even cognition. But when we regain our normal cognition, we feel as if we had experienced a great but unknown happiness and feel better. Those persons who lead their life without ever pausing for a moment to know who or what they are given the traditional genealogical history as their own. On the basis of this piece of information, the common man completes his journey of life in the pride of his family and tradition. During this period, he is engaged in the customary and religious and other morally desirable activities, with bits of worship and meditation according to tradition. But even then, at the time of death, one has in one's mind the expectancy and fear of reward and punishment, of good and bad deeds done during the lifetime. And he bids farewell to the world in this very state of mind. All the treasures and belongings collected and owned by him for his happiness during his lifetime are forever kept away from him, and he does not even once come into contact with them to know what has happened to them. And still his greed and lust operates unabated till the last moment. Persons whom we have intensely loved are never to be seen after death. And yet the human being is blindly in ceaseless pursuit of transitory worldly interests to the very last moment. Everyone knows that his accidental contact with the world is a transient affair. Knowing it fully well that a time would come when this field of activity would not even be remembered, still one is actively engaged in acquiring great material wealth here. He never pauses for a moment to know why is it that he should be tempted and greedy for a world of such flimsy acquaintance. If he were ever to truly inquire and investigate, he would give up the temptation and greed and would be contented, a loving man, without enmity, and he would enjoy the beauty born of his oneness with the knowledge of the universe and the mystery thereof. But this is not what actually takes place. He leads his life with the firm conviction that the world has been prior to his existence, with an ever-extended tradition, and that it is real. In his very presence, he sees that the world is undergoing incessant change, and yet he feels that it is real. He takes his own body appearance and the ground which he stands on to be equally real. It is this conviction that prompts him to behave as he does. And it never dawns on him that all this world could be cast into eternal oblivion in a moment. When through inquiry we concentrate our attention on the origin of thought, the thought process itself comes to an end. There is a hiatus for a while, and again the process starts without our knowledge. The blank interval where the mind stops is a truly pleasant one. We feel that we are the parent to the thoughts that originate and operate in our minds. But the nature of this parenthood is not easy to grasp, and it would not be grasped by a casual glance. We are the originators and make use of it in sustaining ourselves. What is this mystery where thoughts are the mainstay of this life? The whole is contained in us and in our thoughts. When the thought process is at rest, we feel that the world too is at rest. When the human being begins to think of the center of the self, he forms the habit of entering into the happy state. The mind turns away from the fivefold objects of the external world and their enjoyment, which is only pleasure, and gets an internal turn, where one begins to enjoy the objectless bliss. Having turned away from the external world, the mind gets a taste of the interior and feels that the world of objects is not meant for it. Prior to this direct experience of awakening, the unsatiating enjoyments of the senses constantly challenge the mind to satisfy them. But from the initial inward turn and awakening, interest in the senses and thoughts begins to fade. Unless one loses interest in the world of sense objects, one cannot expect enjoyment and true bliss. Once this is enjoyed, the external pleasure seeking begins to lose its charms. Such a man as that who has tasted of the inward bliss is naturally loving and free from envy, contented and happy with others' prosperity, is friendly and innocent and free from deceit. He expects nothing. Owing to the inward bliss, he gradually acquires an ethereal and clear vision. He is in full to the brim with the unknowable mystery and the wonder of bliss. He does not envy the pleasures of other men, nor the world, and has no greed for wealth and honor. He is happy with the experience of the self, Atman. So long as one has not had this experience of awakening, one cannot expect the enjoyment of the bliss of the self, no matter how strongly he values his achievements. One who has realized the self can never inflict pain on others. He simply gets the experience of the world, knows its nature, and effortlessly flows with the people around him, and is at peace with it all.